If that hasn't gotten people to wake up yet, what will? Wake up and realize these people don't care about you. The Libertarian Party is the only party that actually cares about your rights to liberty and freedom. What's up, North Carolina, and welcome back to the Liberty Inc. podcast, your source to all things liberty in NC. Today we are joined by Erik Raudsep. He is currently at large at the LNC, and he is going to be running for vice chair in the Reno convention. Erik, welcome to the show.
Hey, it is great to be on the show. How are you doing tonight?
Great, man. Great. It's nice to have a conversation, not about a current office. It's been great interviewing people who are running for office, for statewide office or local offices. But it's nice to kind of have a different change of pace on the channel. I'm really excited, to chat about this. Was selected to be a delegate in Reno for the first time. So I'm really excited to go voice and vote for the next LNC. So I'm excited to have you on here. I've being here in North Carolina, I think we may know you a little more than some other states. So seeing you around at convention last year and whatnot, I'm kind of excited. But I really want to talk about you as a candidate and really what I think is the most important thing for any candidate for a board like the LNC, and that's really the vision for the LNC. So I would love to just kind of hand it over to you for an open-ended question of what is your vision for the LNC when we hopefully elect you, as vice chair this upcoming.
Well, first of all, I want to say thank you for all the interviews you've done with candidates running for office, both local and statewide and all of that, because that's the business of the Libertarian Party. And to highlight them is really quite important.
Yeah.
Giving them the experience of camera time and being able to concisely and accurately put out their positions and their opinions and why the Libertarian candidate is the best candidate in every single situation for the freedom and liberty of North Carolina and abroad. So, or beyond, not necessarily abroad, but yeah, that's really that. The fact that you're highlighting them is awesome, and thank you for doing that, because that is really important work.
I love it. It's just this conversation. I hopefully don't have to bash Republicans and Democrats as much, because we could talk to just libertarian focus. I feel like a lot of those has been bashing the Uniparty, which, don't get me wrong, I love, but I'm excited about a purely libertarian conversation tonight. So.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's one of the things I love about running internally inside the party, is that 99% of us agree. And it's really the details and the small things that we're disagreeing on, and on where in liberty do we need to push forward first. That's the question. It's not what is liberty or do we need more liberty. The answer to all of those questions, regardless of who you ask in the party, is going to be yes. And that's really important. So,
yeah, absolutely. The LNC, depending on the circles, you're either don't really think about it too much, or it's kind of been a lot of drama. I personally wish the drama wasn't there, so I don't really want to talk about that tonight, Erik. But I do want to say, going forward, you're going to be vice chair or running for vice chair. I hope you'll get the opportunity to do that, and without telegraphing things, I plan on voting for you, as part of the North Carolina delegation. But if we can envision the LNC kind of moving past this wherever it goes, I hope we can as an organization. What does that look like in the future going forward as far as a vision for what the LNC should be? How do we kind of get past all of this and really kind of get back to functioning and getting more liberty in our lifetime?
Absolutely. So first of all, you said that there were two groups of libertarians, one that doesn't think about the LNC very much, and then another group that focuses in on all the stuff going on. Well, when the LNC is working right, that group that doesn't focus on the LNC is really, really big. And when things aren't going right, that's when you have a lot of people focusing in on stuff.
Sure.
And obviously this term, first time I'm on the LNC the last 2 years, nobody on this LNC even remotely thought that this was going to be the term that we were going to be serving. So it has been challenging. There's a lot of trials and tribulations, and you just try to do the best job you can and serve the party. I mean, that really is what it comes down to. Obviously, yes, I do want to see the LNC kind of fade back into the background and worry about the operations and getting more liberty to Americans and to obviously growing the party. Those are really the things that we need to get back to focusing on, and really so important. Angela McArdle has talked about an all hands on deck mentality. And I think that's absolutely a key aspect to it. We need to have better communication with inside the LNC, but open and free. So that's really important as well. I mean, when we don't communicate together, then that's when a lot of these problems happen. We're libertarians. You get 6 libertarians in a room, you'll get 12 different opinions. So, I mean, that's just kind of the way libertarians are. And one of the reasons I love the party, because we always are thinking outside of the box in multiple directions simultaneously.
Sure.
But we just need to be communicating better. We need to be able to accept that we have different ideas and move together forward on the best ideas that get presented, and not dig your heels in and say that it's my way or the highway. I'm not going to name names. There's no reason for that.
Yeah.
But there are several individuals who have done that, and then that's a reaction as well. You know, if one person digs in their heels, another person is going to dig their heels in, just, you know, back and forth. And that has put us largely into the predicament that we have today, and it's unfortunate. So I would like to see a lot of individuals change. Now, I don't want to see everyone change. I definitely want to see some individuals who are willing to work, who are willing to be the bridge builders, stay on the LNC, because we need that type of institutional knowledge to make sure that things work well, and we know what has been tried before and what does work and what doesn't work, but still be bold and be able to move forward together with new ideas, new leadership, and everything.
Yeah.
So that's really, really important. It also means that we need to restructure our committees in a large way. Obviously, you know, we have our standard committees like bylaws and platform and historical, and there's a whole list of standing committees that will always be there, and those are important. But even they need to be restructured somewhat within their own organization to improve communication. One of the things that you'll find, and this is with libertarians around the country, is that we're very good at reinventing the wheel. Now, we don't need to have, we're not a top-down organization. We're a bottom-up organization, but we do need communication between all the different levels to make sure that we're all working with the best solutions that have been found. And that communication structure between local affiliates, states, national, doesn't exist. And if it does, it's not working. And I can tell you, it doesn't exist. It's been tried. It has been tried, but unfortunately, it just kind of disintegrates from one term to another. And especially when there's infighting in the party like there is right now. Those lines of communication break down, and there isn't a formal structure that continues on. Now, in some areas, that structure does still exist. You know, here in North Carolina, there is no caucus war. Yeah. Show up, do the work, and everything is wonderful. And that is absolutely key. That's something that we need to start recreating. And North Carolina is not unique. There's plenty of other states that are still doing the job that needs to be done. But
I'd probably say the majority of states. Even.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. It is the majority of states. And I've been lucky enough to see that because I've traveled the country. I've been to, this weekend I'm in Texas, and then I'm coming up on Ohio a couple of weeks later. By the time I'm done with Ohio, I have been to 18 different states this year.
Wow.
And yeah, I'm
and it's April.
Yeah. Wow. And I'm lucky to say every single convention I've been to has been, for the most part, smooth. There are always going to be one or two people who want to throw wrenches, but I mean, hey, once again, we're libertarians. I was in Reno planning, because I'm on the convention committee, so I was in Reno when Pennsylvania happened, and a couple of other states that were a little bit gnarly. I missed those, but overall, every single state that I've been to, with my boots on the ground, has been a let's get work done. We're a party. We need to get it done type of convention, and it's been great. I mean, nothing motivates me more than rolling up my sleeves and getting in with state parties and getting it done. So that's really important.
Yeah, no, I like that. You know, that's when I think of the LNC, right? I get pulled into it because I care, right, as an activist in the party. But really, the most important stuff to me is really like the local stuff, right? You know, this is going to air in the future, but tomorrow I've got a rally in Gastonia with Spike Cohen where you know, we're dealing with some local issues, and that's kind of what I'd like to see is, you know, we're the third largest party, but we still have, you know, we have to grow by orders of magnitude. We can't just, you know, each one of us is going to have to recruit like 100 or 1,000 more voters before anything comes. And I think that the best way to do that really is local. Like, just I look at this activism where, you know, I've had lifelong Republicans, lifelong Democrats ask me, how do I join the Libertarian Party? Just because they see us out there in the communities finding things that are liberty issues, that it doesn't really matter left or right, right? We just look at it and say, is government infringing on someone's natural human rights? And if the answer is yes, I feel like there's a place for liberty, right, to get out there. And that's how I think we win, right? And I would love to see, how does the LNC support that, right? Whether, you know, and I think big things are ballot access, but, you know.
Glad you asked.
Yeah, no, great.
Because in my strategic operations plan, one of the things that I highlight and is being highlighted by other candidates is something I talked about 2 years ago.
Okay.
And that's the LNC creating a structure to encourage the growth of single issue groups. Everyone is concerned about liberty. Yeah. Everyone has one issue where liberty is absolutely paramount. They may not buy into the entire package that's the Libertarian Party, right, but they have one issue. And that's why single issue groups are so absolutely vital, because then we can put them in their comfort zone and introduce them to liberty en masse. It doesn't matter if it's Second Amendment and talking about gun rights and why it's important that every American has the right to buy a gun. Doesn't matter if they do or not, but their right has to be protected to own a firearm. And a lot of the Second Amendment groups out there right now are funneling into the Republican Party. That's why it's absolutely vital that the Libertarian Party, who's stronger on Second Amendment rights than the Republicans will ever be,
absolutely
create our own Second Amendment groups, because liberty can only be preserved under the Libertarian Party. Because what the Republicans are doing is, we care about Second Amendment rights and then throw them out the door because it doesn't work. But they talk a good game.
Yeah, I joke, Republicans like to campaign like libertarians and then govern like Democrats. At least some of them do. You know, some of them really do. They pitch themselves for liberty and freedom, and then get more.
You know, that's one of the reasons why I love the Libertarian Party, is because we're not out there trying to get votes. We're out there. We are a party of principle. So when we say that we stand behind Second Amendment rights, we stand behind Second Amendment rights. Now, at differing levels, I mean, one person's vision of liberty may not be another person's vision of liberty, but it's always liberty based. Sure. There's no give on that line. Yeah. What the definition of liberty is, the minutia can change, but it's minutia. Everyone is about protecting your right for whatever it is. It doesn't matter if it's Second Amendment or health issues like getting experimental drugs to the people who need it, or direct primary care and ensuring that that's an acceptable way to get your health care. Education choice, making sure that parents can educate their children and are given the support and structure to actually get that done. Yeah. Or GSM issues or LGBTQ issues. You know, I mean, sure, LGBTQ individuals can have the right to get married now in this country, but that doesn't mean that adoption is any easier, or any other number of issues that still haven't been sorted out. So, you know, those are really important. Immigration, my gosh, these people are being herded around like cattle.
Yeah,
it's totally unfair. Racial issues, voting issues, farming issues. Farming issues are huge for liberty. taxation, environment, homelessness, youth, housing, retired people. It goes on and on. I mean, the rally in Gastonia tomorrow that you just mentioned, that's on homelessness. I mean, that is an absolute key issue for the Libertarian Party. By the way, I'm trying to make it. I cannot guarantee, but I am trying to make it.
If you can, it'd be awesome. But that's where this issue is kind of pulling around. Where it hits so many things. Where homelessness has been an issue, and there's a pastor who's basically like, just let me shelter these people, right? They're here. Let me let them in. That really kind of was what started it. And now, the city shut them down. 6 people died in a 1-week time period. One of them like on the church property. And it's funny, you bring people in, and I actually went out to look there, and he was just surprised because he's been a lifelong Democrat, right? And he said to me, where's my party here? And then I saw other Republicans showed up for it, and that's an apolitical thing, right? It doesn't matter what with a single issue group. It doesn't matter what your party is, right? You find an issue, and rally around it. And I think that's winning issues, really. Like, I believe that the liberty issue is the winning issue. We just have to convince some, but there's some low hanging fruit where, I look at some things. I kind of expected a bunch of Democrats to be with me in this, right? And I don't want it just to be, just to be libertarians out there rallying with me. But then, there's also the veteran issue. The homeless guy was a veteran, so there's a bunch of Republicans out there and veterans' rights groups. That's a winning thing that I wish every libertarian across the country could say. Find a single issue group that's a hot button issue that's there locally, and use that as a way to get attention for the liberty idea, right? Fight for liberty. Don't make it about growing the party. Don't make it about anything. Just fight for liberty. And when people see that, they'll gravitate towards it. And
one of the mistakes that the libertarians have made for years, there's plenty of single issue groups that have been created from the Libertarian Party, but we have this obsession of putting the word libertarian in the group. And all of a sudden, I mean, let's be honest, there's a lot of people, and there's been a lot of marketing from the old parties that say libertarianism is bad. So all of a sudden they see a single issue group that has the word libertarian, and they're going to be walking into that group with a certain mindset or a certain idea before anything. So we need to create these single issue groups, make sure that they don't have the word libertarian in it, and start educating people about freedom, and get to them where they have their heart and their passion. And the next thing, they'll be libertarians. And it's going to be an amazing thing. It's something that's long overdue. And the old parties, they're using it to great effectiveness already on just membership retention. Because again, a lot of these issues, there's only one party or the other party that's talking about it. And our voice is deaf, and it's really unfortunate.
It is. Well, and that kind of brings to where I think can be a big win in single issue groups, as well as something from the LNC, and that's around the idea of bold messaging, right? Where I look at how Spike has been, just to use Spike as an example, right? How Spike has been using his platform, and granted, I know that the blue check mark helps when you were a vice presidential candidate for visibility, but being bold and calling those things out. I look at this, and again, this is the party's podcast, but I, as the host, look, I have my own opinions, and I'm going to state one right now. But I look at what happened in 2020 to now, and I feel like we had such a huge missed opportunity as a party, where we saw just massive attacks on civil liberties. Like some states, literally churches and synagogues told you cannot open your doors. I mean, just clear and blatant First Amendment rights. And both sides of the uniparty, for the most part, kept their mouths shut, went along with it. And I just looked at it and said, I'm a libertarian. I'm now getting active in the party. Why isn't the LNC screaming this on our Twitter account and our Facebook page every day? And I wonder, that was one of the things that I'm upfront about. I prefer bold messaging, and I get that there's some people in the party who prefer that kind of tone down, try to play within, play nice with the uniparty. I just look at it and say, if we're going to be kind of radical, let's be radical. What does that look like? How do you find that balance of bringing bold messaging, but at the same time not being, because I've seen it, right? You can push bold too far and get into like edgelord trolling, and that's not effective, and it's not what I'd want to see coming out of the National Party. But I also don't want to see this milquetoast stuff when the government is going full tyrannical across the globe. How do you find that balance?
So actually, I would look to Fortune 500 companies.
Okay.
A perfect example is the car industry. So first of all, you have to have tiered communication, and then you have to know who you're talking to. Right. So first, let's look at top tier communication. Let's look at Subaru and Ford. Okay. If you look at Subaru, what they're talking about is you're going to buy our car and you're going to give this car to your children. And that basically is indicating I've got a great product that's long lasting, that's going to be low cost of ownership, and it's safe enough that you're going to want to give it to your children. So in that one statement, they've made four statements altogether. Then you look at Ford, and on their high-end communication, they're showing all the JD Power awards they've won for best in class and affordable and reliable, dependable, long lasting. It's the same message, but they're broadcasting it to two different individuals, one who's factual based and one who's emotionally based. So first of all, on the very top tier, you've got to know who you're talking to. Okay. Then you start moving down through the communication. And so you all of a sudden get down to the local dealerships. And the local dealerships, one of the things that really went national was in West Virginia. There was a Ford dealer who was, you buy a Ford F-150, we're going to give you a shotgun.
Right.
And it worked. It was great. Now, that would not work in Manhattan.
Sure.
I mean, you could not ever sell a truck and give away a shotgun with that truck purchase.
They wouldn't even come to your dealership if they heard you were giving away a shotgun. And
exactly. You would scare everyone away. However, there was a dealership in New York that for every single car you purchased, they would donate $100 to the local animal shelter.
Right.
So it was the same cost approximately. I mean, probably, shotgun was a little bit more money, but the idea was the same. They're targeting to who they're selling in their local market. Right. High message. This is a great product. This is why you should be buying our product. It's long lasting. It's dependable. It's, low cost of maintenance, all of that. Towards the bottom, or where the rubber meets the road, where you're actually interacting with the people, that's when the messaging gets really bold. That's when it gets really strong. No one's losing principle. Everyone's talking about the issue, but how you're addressing that issue changes not only for who you're talking to, but also how targeted your audience is. And that's something that we need to implement here in the Libertarian Party. We need to make sure that we're having high-level messaging that's both emotional and factual. We need to make sure that we are empowering and giving our affiliates, if they choose to use it, because obviously there's no force, there's no nothing, but give them the tools to run much harder hitting, much bolder messaging that again is tuned towards emotional or factual based. So we have to be able to have a large marketing department that's tailoring this information, hitting it hard, hitting it consistently, and not missing these opportunities ever again. It was horrible. I mean, there were many conversations on the board about messaging, how to get it done. Karen Ann Harlos wanted to create a committee. That never got done because no one empowered her to do so. We voted on it. We didn't want to create a committee. We encouraged her to create the committee on her own. But then at the same time, and in retrospect, it makes sense, but she felt like if she just created her own committee, it wouldn't have the validity of the party. So, I mean, there were different aspects, there were different mindsets going on. Both of them had the right idea, but it all fell apart. It all went haywire. Everyone wanted messaging and we got nothing because we couldn't agree on how to develop that messaging. what was the mechanics that needed to be created to get that messaging. And again, it's because people dug their heels in. They got their emotions and their fifis all in a bunch, and the LNC became ineffective. And it was really unfortunate. And it was on many different shoulders, including mine at some times. And I will admit that. But you know,
well, I mean, I like that you're willing to admit that. You know, I'm on several charitable boards, right? And I always say, you know, we can't take all the credit, because a lot of times the credit, you know, is done by staff or by, you know, someone who has a brilliant idea or a donor who enables something, right? But hey, the failures all rest on us, right? Because at the end of the day, which is it's a crappy place to be in, but it's the reality of, you know. And again, I mostly serve on like nonprofit charitable type of boards, but it's the same thing, right? Even though it's a political party, you know, the fiduciary duty and the need to, you know, respect the donors to a degree, right? Is
there's just a lot more rules and regulations by the Federal Election Committee. But yeah, no, in a lot of ways, you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Well, you know, I mean, we're really lucky that we have a phenomenal staff. Almost everybody on the staff is just such a hard worker, wants to get the job done, and they do it. They do a phenomenal job. You know, I mean, look at what Carl Schultz has done with creating education systems. That's being developed even further. It's eventually going to get rolled out into an online class system. And that's going to be able to be accessed by libertarians around the country. At 1 o'clock in the morning, they can learn fundraising techniques and everything else. So that's really important.
Well, that kind of brings me up to you know, I think a big thing that is a good place to kind of shift to, that I know we wanted to shift to, and that's kind of around the idea of you know, budgeting and reporting and kind of getting information out there, because I'm a financial planner by trade. I'm a data junkie. You give me a spreadsheet, I'm kind of in heaven, right, when it comes to that. Where my wife you know, would just tell me, Mike, look at this. I don't even want to look at it, right? But I think those are kind of important things, right? Where there are certain things that we can measure, right? And I'm a big ROI person, right? And ROI can be tangible, like, you know, where you spend something if the goal is raising donor dollars, right? Well, that's an easy metric, right? What did we spend to raise those donor dollars? How much donor dollars did we gain? Other things, it's, you know, did we get ballot access, right? We spend money. Did we get ballot access? Did we get it efficiently? I would love to hear kind of some of your ideas, right? From a standpoint of, because I'm just going to be honest, and I think you'll take this honestly, but you know, we spent $30,000 of donor money on a video, right? That we sourced, and I just want to be honest. Dan Smots put one together for free that I'm sure he would have let us kind of use for and the reality, you know, that I think it was a little bit better messaging, a little bit bolder. I liked it more. I'm sure there's some people in the party who like the other one better, right? But I'm very much a believer in decentralization of power, right? Like, I believe it in governance. I like the idea of it in the party, but we've got a lot of talent in this pool of people within the party. And I look at this as, you know, we went through all of this where we didn't even retweet Dan's video. It was a great video with a similar one. We couldn't even get LP National. And that's kind of the thing where I look at it. What are your thoughts on that, as far as how do we factor in, we've got a budget, has to pay for things, staff, ballot access, all of these things, but how do we I mean, you know, what's the cost to retweet something, right? Like there's no cost, but that's something that we could measure. What are some kind of things that you'd like to see as far as stretching and maximizing the impact of our budget, as well as kind of the development of reports? How do we kind of shift those things in a way that we can communicate to donors, right, to bring in more money into the party, as well as, you know, maybe party members who may not have the treasure to donate, but they have the time and talent to donate, right? What kind of report should we develop? How do we shift the budget? Talk me through kind of that whole range of topics that we'll jump into.
So first of all, I don't know how we spent $30,000 on that, but it is what it is. And we need both videos. You had kind of alluded to that, that there are some people who prefer the first video that the party put out. And then a lot of people preferred Smoltz's video. And that goes to show that we need both. We need both videos. To retweet Dan's video would have been zero. Right. We would have needed to get a donor form from him and, treated it as an in-kind donation. But that's all we would have needed. And then we could have shared it and done a million and other things, put it forward, put it out there, and it would have been great. Why that never got done, I couldn't tell you. But
I think we were a little too busy fighting at that point where everybody dug their heels in and was more focused on that. But, I'm trying to look forward to the future because I see, Dan can keep doing that, but I know there's a lot of talent throughout the LP. I noticed it where, there's someone up in the LP in Alaska, right? That's so far from North Carolina, but she's a veteran and she's an artist. So she makes all these awesome comics that she's pushing out for our rally. I just look, there's so much talent within the LP that would be willing to donate that time and talent. And I'd love to see, how do we capture that, or maybe even find a way of budgeting amplification of that, or what kind of, reports do we need to develop? I think that's a big thing where I'm big in the nonprofit space of how do you communicate to donors, these are the results, right? Because that's the kind of thing that I think causes people to donate more, causes people to get more involved.
Oh, absolutely. And I totally agree. One of the things that we don't have in this party that we kind of need to is have a talent base that we can identify. We just kind of stab things in the dark and hope it works. And obviously there's a lot of libertarians that don't want to self-identify, and that's fine. But anybody who wants to self-identify and say, hey, I'm willing to volunteer my services, or I'll give you reduced rates, or even if I have to charge you full value, this is what I do. And we need to start taking inventory of what talent we have in the party, because right now we don't know. I mean, that is the totally honest answer. We have almost 2 million members across the country, and we don't know what they do. Other than the fact that they agree that freedom and liberty is the solution for the United States. Yep. So we definitely need to, anyone who wants to self-identify, we're going to need to start including that information and putting together a libertarian talent pool. Back in the 70s and the 80s, actually, the Libertarian Party did a lot better with this, because in LP News, there were whole advertising sections. And we would understand who was a graphics designer, or who ran insurance companies, or who was a copywriter, because they would put advertisements in LP News. So that was one way of having people self-identify. And then getting out their message and their skills to the Libertarian Party members. Not necessarily what we have to do now. I mean, now we have Google Forms and Google Docs and all sorts of other tools out there, even privatized database systems that we can control the security of the information a lot better. Yeah. And all of those are on the table, but we need to start identifying the talent. So that's the first thing. But you also mentioned useful reports. The reports in this party right now, we are so data rich that we just put out spreadsheets and hope people can digest them. And for numbers people like yourself or myself, and we can play around with the numbers and we can dive in and do this, that, and the other thing, and we start manipulating things, and then we go into historical data and we create, other graphs and other, we bring in other spreadsheets and try to create. That's wonderful. That's very few people. That's operations numbers people that succeed at that. The vast majority of libertarians are not. We're all data people. I mean, most libertarians are data people, but they don't have the tools, the resources, or the time to do that. Sure. So what we need to do is actually create useful reports. We need to create a structure on what a useful report is, and make sure that we're giving a synopsis in the front, a summary. We need to be breaking the data down and kind of showing how the data plays out. And then the average individual will be able to digest the reports a lot better instead of just looking at numbers on a page in a spreadsheet form. Yeah. So a lot of the information gets lost. Heck, there's even things that I've gone back and looked at reports from years ago that I never saw or it never stood out to me because it wasn't the column that I was focusing on. But at the same time, it was really important. So if there was a summary page or a synopsis, then all of a sudden, maybe that would have called out that column and how it interacted, and maybe created new action points or new directions for the party to actually develop in. But those things never got done.
That
So
that's a
it really,
that's a good point, and it hits on something I was actually just thinking about earlier today, where people were talking about the recent membership report, right? And I'm sitting here looking at it, and it's several different charts that are put out, very little context, right? Where you look at just a 12-month report, and then they include one 10-year, and I think that data's great. I love having all the data in the world because I'm willing to sift through it and discard the stuff that but you put that out, and I look at it and I think of, like successful, Fortune 500 companies, right? Public companies, when they put out their data, they have exactly what you said, kind of like an executive summary or, an overview of here. This is what is in the charts. These are our key takeaways that are database. Because I'm sitting here looking at people getting all upset online, looking at this thing, and as someone who looks at data, I'm just sitting here like kind of hitting myself a little bit, like people are analyzing this data and they're saying things that this data does not say, and they're making inferences because they just don't know how to read the data. And that's one thing I'm like, this is whoever's doing this, put an executive summary before this and kind of put that together, and you can avoid all of this people fighting over whose inferences are right.
Another aspect that you've seen a lot on the LNC discussion page or the email list is fundraising for the month of March.
Yeah.
Or the fundraising for the month of February. Sorry.
Yeah.
And it went down. It really tanked. So immediately, what I started looking at was our financial data from 2007. Our financial data from 96 and 97. And the reason I did was because this is when the first Gulf War occurred. It's when the gas prices were at a similar level during the Bush administration.
Right.
And because in the first 3 months of this year, we've had Russia declare war on the Ukraine. We're seeing gas prices like we've never seen before. We're seeing runaway inflation. So I started looking at the financial data from these years where we had correlating data points and what happened to fundraising in those years. And immediately it started to create a picture that this is cyclical. Whenever we see gas prices rise dramatically, whenever we see inflation occurring, whenever we see the United States or another power declaring war on another country, our fundraising dollars go other places.
Sure.
So our fundraising dollars right now are going to Ukrainian children's organizations. Sure. Our fundraising dollars are going to put, Tommy's gas tank full. That's where our fundraising dollars are going. That's what the data has shown in historical spreadsheets. This is not some sort of retaliatory aspect that people are trying to sell. This plays out in data on similar situations that we've seen historically and libertarian fundraising, especially when we saw the Gulf War go on, and especially when we saw inflation going on. Our donors want to give directly to the people that are impacted because libertarians care, and that's where our money's going. It's not because people are ignoring us or fearful of where the Libertarian Party is going. They just feel that their dollars can be more impactful getting it to the pockets of the people that are directly impacted. And it's shown through historical data.
Yeah. Well, and the other one of the inflation and the high gas prices, that's something that regular, like non-political, just charities have to deal with when things get tight for everyday Americans, right? That $5, $10, $15 a month that maybe, someone's able to kind of do, like just regular folk, that kind of becomes an issue in, the 501c3 area. So I mean, to me,
Yeah.
just logical inferences, that's going to happen to political donations and any other type of donations. If
Does.
inflationary pressures are causing uncertainty for families, like just the natural human nature when there's uncertainty is to kind of go into protect mode, right? You're going to just be a little bit thriftier with where you're spending dollars, kind of, and it's logical. And that's the thing, is I see people fighting over some of these things, and I'm like, this isn't even
It's
something to fight over.
amazing. We have a narrative in our own party, and we fall to our own narrative, uh, and that's, for as data driven as we are, it's kind of amazing. And we don't zoom back and say, hey, let's take a look at what's going on and try to figure this out.
Well,
Uh,
it's human
and
nature too, though, right? Because I think that's what causes it. Is we get so emotional about these things that we kind of let emotion, like once the emotions take over, we kind of just stop thinking. Even though we may be very data and analytical, we sometimes just say, forget it. You're kind of in our fields, and that's an issue. So
well, I mean, like I said just a moment ago, libertarians care.
yeah,
And for as much as we love data, for as much numbers people as we are so filled with compassion, that we are just as emotional as anybody else. We just like to back up our compassion with hard, cold facts, and that's another one of the great things about the Libertarian Party.
yeah. Well, this was something that when we were chatting about before, it was something that you wanted to talk on. So I figured it'd be a good kind of thing for me to kind of share my thoughts on it, and then kind of get your thoughts. And that's the idea of why membership matters. Because I've had a lot of discussions with friends and other libertarians about the kind of whole role of unaffiliated versus registering L. And I used to be of the mindset of, okay, I get the case for registering unaffiliated, right? You can still fully participate as a libertarian, but what if there's a local primary, there's no libertarian on the ballot, and maybe you have a chance to make your voice more meaningful in local politics. So being unaffiliated, and I get that, but then I've kind of grown to really appreciate the idea of registering libertarian. So I am a registered libertarian myself, even though I accept the strategy of the unaffiliated registration. But I think that membership does matter, because one is it puts us out there, right? Where the same way that here in North Carolina, they made a kind of big media push because unaffiliated voters are now, the plurality of voters, right? It's the largest group. They've overcome Republicans and Democrats in the state, right? So if we show our numbers registering matter, it makes the local politicians as well as the state level politicians pay a little bit more attention, because they're a larger group of voters that you're either going to make happy or piss off, for lack of a better way of putting it, right. So that I think that kind of same thing has convinced me to go from unaffiliated to libertarian. But you said talking about why membership matters kind of at the LNC version. Walk me through that. Why does kind of the membership matter, especially because I know a lot of people are much more involved at the local level, which is, I think, natural. Like we care about what's going on in California, but I care much more what's going on in Gastonia, right? It's just
Right.
nature. Why does that national membership matter?
So national membership matters because membership dues are actually one of the largest income sources for the Libertarian Party.
Okay.
So if you join the Libertarian Party, you are helping the Libertarian Party get stuff done. I mean, that is really where the rubber meets the road right there. I mean, that is really important. So membership matters as far as a financial aspect,
Okay.
to the Libertarian Party. The other thing is, when you become a member, you are going to align yourself more deeply with that organization, because it's one of the reasons we send out membership cards, is because now you feel like you are part of an organization. And those are really important aspects. Plus, then also you're more likely to volunteer, you're more likely to do, and all of that. So membership is exceptionally important. And it's also identification. If you identify as a libertarian and you say, yes, I'm going to become a member of the Libertarian Party, now you are part of something larger, and that's really important. But what I want to focus on as vice chair is not necessarily those aspects. And those are all really important. one thing that we find is that we don't have a great membership retention rate. Now, a lot do renew or become lifetime members or whatever. So I really want to start focusing on how do we retain membership? How do we keep membership year after year? Because that's really where we're going to start making big differences. And again, it goes back to the old parties. The old parties have better tools. Obviously, they have more money.
Right.
But in this wonderful world of digital, you can get big boy tools at very low prices. And we need to start leveraging those tools. We need to start acting like the big parties and really welcoming people. I mean, if we have a CRM, I mean, yes, the CRM that we have still has a lot of development, but it is wonderful that we have a CRM that is built by libertarians for libertarians and checks every box that we need. But there's still a lot of development that needs to go into it. And we're not there at the point where we're going to scrap it. I mean, we've put a lot of money into it,
Sure.
and there are no other products out on the market right now that will check all of the boxes that we need it to check. So it's better to still throw a little bit more money into the CRM, make it a little bit more secure, make sure that we're handling our data better, and all of that. And then that will give us the tools to actually start reaching out to a lot of individuals regularly, giving states the option or the ability to reach out to new members, make sure that they're engaged, getting them involved. Just that type of communication. It always goes back to communication. We're talking about communication in the very beginning, and we're talking about communication now. We need to make sure that we are giving our affiliates the tools to succeed. We need to make sure that we're giving everybody that wants the tools the ability to use the tools. And that's absolutely key. We can't be these gate masters like, oh, yeah, well, we've got this, but not for you. Yeah. That's not what the LNC needs to be doing. That's not what the national party should be doing. We need to be creating these tools and make sure that we're disseminating them for all levels of the Libertarian Party. And then we need to develop new tools. We definitely need recruiting tools. We need walking sheets or walking maps. We have a great relationship with a company called eCanvasser, but we need to develop that even further. If that's eCanvasser, if that's something that we build in-house, but we need to have those conversations and make sure that we're bringing it wider. We need to have good data. If we're talking about bringing in data from Cambridge Analytica or whatever, we have an agreement with LexisNexis, and all sorts of other data systems. And those are really things that we need to start negotiating national contracts for, and allowing states, affiliates even, to purchase into hyperlocal data that will really give them the opportunity to retain and develop their own membership. Because if you don't know who's in your community, it's going to be very hard to reach out to that community. Yeah. So those are the types of things that I really see the LNC being able to provide to the affiliates, both local and state level, to actually retain or to reach out to individuals that we've never even known as members. And then, of course, it goes back to single issue groups, that if they're partnered with the Libertarian Party, but outside of the Libertarian Party, then we get their data and their information as well, giving us a whole new data set that we've never even touched before. So there's a lot of different keys that all kind of, come together to really unlock the lock. And if they do, and we can get them all working together, we're going to have a flood in this party like we've never seen before.
One thing I'm curious about, and what you said there, just kind of about having more useful data, just kind of got me thinking about, I think back, I'm turning 40 later this year. So at some point in my life, I've been a registered Democrat or registered Republican and independent. And one thing I think back is, even going back into the early 2000s when I was a Democrat, the big parties poll their members a lot. Like I remembered, when I was a Democrat, I feel like at least once a year, possibly once a quarter, I was kind of getting something Back then it was probably expensive, and money I could see being a big hindrance in those days for the LP being a smaller party. But, the Democrats did that, and then the Republicans did that, where they kind of see this thing of like, where do you stand on these? What's most important? And then they were able to kind of make decisions. I feel like since I've joined the LP, I've never been asked by the LP, where do I stand on really any of these things, aside from kind of the informal Facebook groups. I feel like, the online element of it that has a lot of this, infighting going on, I feel that's not really representative of the party as a whole at all. And I feel like that could be one way to almost kind of settle some of this fighting, where you've kind of got the online elements would be, how do we reach out to like all of these members and all of these donors and kind of come back and say, do you want us to be, a little more aggressive against mandates, or, do you want us to try to be, centrist in this? Those are the kind of things that I would love to see the LNC do. Is that something that, has been tried in the past? Is there in the future? Is that something you'd like to see? Or
I would love to see that. I mean, I would absolutely love to see that, because not only are those great data gathering aspects, but they're also great fundraisers. Because at the end of every single one of those surveys that you're sent, there's a donate now.
Yeah.
And if you've taken the time to donate to answer the entire survey, you are much more likely to donate. So yes, I don't even know if the Republicans and the Democrats actually go through any of the information, because they use them more as
fundraising tools,
gathering aspects. But I mean, hey, we're libertarians, and like we've said already a couple of times throughout this, we are data people. So I am sure, I know at least I would be going through all the data and the answers and all of that, because it would give us definitely a better census of what is going on in the Libertarian Party. What are our opinions? What are our feels on this? Where do we want to see the party grow? And then it'll also be a great source of income generation for the Libertarian Party. So it actually creates a lot of different aspects and a lot of different solutions to start polling our members, doing it regularly, and just like I had said with membership, there's a lot of tools out there right now that we're not properly leveraging, that are much more cost effective than they have been in the history. And we need to start reaching out and utilizing these tools, because otherwise we're going to just miss the boat entirely.
Yeah, I mean, I know mailers are expensive, but I feel like, if there was some kind of, even if it was like an annual survey, right, where you kind of put that out, and I see it in my industry, like as a financial advisor, some of the custodians, the Fidelities, the TD Ameritrades, they do these kind of things where they kind of put it out there, and it becomes this thing where you get to give your feedback. And I could see, I could see why the Republicans and Democrats probably wouldn't want to share that. But I would think, as data oriented as libertarians are, it would be one of those things. I think I'd love to see it, right? Like if we had 100,000 libertarians respond to an email, and I get sending that out, and I'm not a big fan of like snail mail as a cost effective solution, but an email's basically as close to free as it gets at this point. And I feel like if we had something like that where you put it out there and then you told people, hey, we're going to share these results with you so you can get a pulse of where it feels, and then maybe even kind of break it down by regions, even if that's maybe not for the public, but that would be useful for like regional representatives to say, hey, this is maybe how you can tailor your local campaigns based on how libertarians in your I just see data
So
as being
we
such
have actually tried it as a party before. Okay. The one that I'm thinking about, and actually I've really deep dived the data in that one, was sent out to every libertarian who is under the age of 25.
Okay.
And it was trying to determine the effectiveness and how do we develop collegiate libertarian groups. There was something like 9,000 respondents to it. And it gave us a great snapshot on the fact that we would actually have a very hard time competing with Students for Liberty or Young Americans for Liberty, because they've already kind of cornered that market. Unless if we were willing to put in serious money to really start combating them, but we couldn't do it as a budget operation. And that's kind of why college libertarians didn't get the push that they really needed to get was just because there was just no funding internal in the party, and we couldn't find a large donor that really wanted to put several thousand or tens of thousands of dollars into really kickstarting a true young libertarians or collegiate libertarians organization. But we have polled in the past. We just haven't done it very widespread, and we haven't done it on a wide effective level. And that's kind of where we need to take that to the next step. So we've played around with it. We've gotten some good data. We've definitely gotten some direction out of it, but we definitely need to amp that up and bring it widespread to really start hitting it home and getting a lot of other libertarians involved as well. So that is definitely a growth trajectory for us, and I totally agree with you 100%.
Well, I'd love to see something there. Well, I know we're kind of coming up on the hour, and I want to be very respectful of your time. But first off, thank you so much. But Erik, I know you are campaigning for vice chair. Yeah. How can we plug? Right, we've got mostly a North Carolina libertarian audience here on the podcast, but I'm sure that hopefully other North Carolina libertarians would like to support Erik right here in Durham for the LNC. How can we where can we go to either find a page to donate or whip for you, or where can we direct listeners?
So if you go on to my Facebook page, which is facebook.com/Erik Raudsep, the spelling is right there for you. Go on there. You can see that there is a link to Patreon, and you can become a Patreon supporter. That's huge. If you contact me directly, if you email me at Erik@libertieslantern.com, I will be more than happy to take a donation from you. Every donation that I receive for my vice chair race, I am personally matching dollar for dollar. So if you donate $100, I will donate $100. And that is a huge help. We are fully funded, but there are still things that we can do bigger, better, and bolder than ever before. So please, yes, absolutely, we can move forward and really take this by storm.
Awesome. Well, we kind of, I think we hit on most of the things that I wanted to cover. We got the plug. Erik, and any closing thoughts, anything else that you want to kind of put out to the audience before I wrap it up here?
I will see you in Reno, and I hope to have your support, and we're going to make this party better than ever before.
I've been vocal about it, and anybody who asks me, I plan on voting for Erik. I will say it now to my fellow North Carolina libertarians. I'm voting for Erik. You can vote for whoever you think is the best. I think Erik is the best for the job. I will see you in Reno. Thank you, everybody. We hope to see you next week right here on the Liberty Inc. podcast, and keep fighting for liberty right here in NC. Thanks so much.